And it's time for this month's installment of Record Autism with Swearing Session. So this time I'm going to focus on the Birmingham-based Inferno Records. Inferno is definitely a little different than the other labels in the sense that they only did 7 releases. So a lot less than the other labels I've done so far. This label is really, I wouldn't say it's not well known. There's a lot of bands that are like Verukers, obviously, that are pretty well known, but the label itself kind of flies under the radar. A lot of people don't even realize a lot of these bands had their records, and in some cases these bands, their only releases were on Inferno. So it's definitely more than a footnote on the second wave British punk and oi history. And this is definitely one of those labels that is great to collect, because it's not that none of the releases are very expensive. There's only 7 of them, so you can really knock out the entire catalog pretty quickly and easily, and every single release is awesome, like to the same level of quality, in my opinion. So Inferno Records is from Birmingham, and Birmingham definitely has a lot of musical history. Not to here's 2, just to sort of give you, if you weren't aware, some of the intense musical history that came out of Birmingham. So this is definitely a hotbed of rock and roll in general. I mean, there's lots of bands from Birmingham and the greater Birmingham area that were very influential, both of these being 2 of my favorite records of all time. So just to put Birmingham in perspective a little bit. And then you had Inferno. Now Inferno was definitely like a lower tier of bands at the time, but records like this, like, you just got to think, like, if this was sort of a couple rungs down in quality of bands that were coming out of Birmingham, like, how many great bands were located there. It's almost like, in my mind, it's kind of like the Detroit of England, in the sense of, it's like kind of off the beaten path. Like, it's not the first thing you think of when you think of that country, but man, they had some of the best records that ever came out of the entire country came out of there. So it's like Stooges, MC5, Negative Approach, Detroit, and you have like Black Sabbath, GBH, Verukers, so in my mind, there's a parallel there between those 2 cities in terms of the just the caliber of bands that were coming out of there. Okay, so Inferno Records itself, it was actually started by 2 guys. It was started by Brian Harris and Keith Thornton. Keith actually ran a record label called Tempest Records, which was a physical record store. So I don't know if Brian was involved, but I know that Keith ran the record store itself. But so you'll see a lot of these. They're kind of you'll see right there, it says Tempest. So Inferno Tempest is kind of known as both of those labels. This is the first release. This was the debut EP from the Verukers, and this was also their debut release in terms of anything like cassettes, vinyl, anything like that. So this is a very strong debut, and this is actually, there's a couple different variations of this. This is not the first variation. So the first variation was on it had red center labels, and actually the cover, the front cover was upside down. So the front cover was like this, and the opening was up here, and then you flipped it around, and everything was normal on the back. So the very first one has the cover inverted, and then they fixed that on this white label copy and on the black label copy. So there's the red labels, which is the first press with the upside down cover, the white label like this one, and then the black label, which is the same, has the image corrected on the front. So the Verukers, they were actually from a little bit outside of Birmingham. They were from a town called Leamington Spa, and they were pretty much like a revolving door of, but like I'm pretty sure every English punk played in Rookers at some point. There were so many different members. I don't think they had any 2 records with the same guys on it. And actually, I think that might be part of the reason for the longevity of this band. And we're actually going to go over their entire discography. We touched on them in the Riot City video, but they did a lot of records in the 80s, and I figured this is kind of a shorter label, so it's kind of a good way to sneak in a Veruca's discography. So we're going to go through all of them. We're going to go through basically everything after their other release on Inferno. So we're kind of going to come back to Veruca's, and then once we do that record, then we'll do their discography. As far as this one goes, there's those 3 variations like I mentioned, but this was also reissued by Havoc Records in 2016 in basically the identical form to this. And then in, I believe it was 2021, Vile Records reissued this, and they actually reissued it with a fold-out sleeve and lyrics and all that stuff, so that's pretty cool. As far as this particular iteration of Veruca's, this was the only release that they would do, because the drummer on this record, Gary Maloney, which this is also him right here, he would leave and he took an opportunity to join another band, Discharge, which probably need no introduction. If you don't know who this band is, I don't know why you're watching this video. You should probably just stop and go go inhale everything this band did before 1983. After 1983, not so much. But anyways, so this was Gary's first record playing drums for Discharge, and he would play on their first full-length album. I mean, he did their first U.S. tour. I mean, he was really, and he played well into their era of shitty music, like their shitty metal era. He played in all that too. So I mean, he was really a mainstay of Discharge after this point. And yeah, so and that's actually funny too, because he's sort of like a Where's Waldo on British punk records at this time, or just at punk records in general. And like here he is on the cover of this Defects album. That's him right there. The record company, I guess, WXYZ Records, they just pulled, these are stills from I think from the Apocalypse Now tour in 1981. This is all, there's video footage of all this. I think they just pulled different frames of that to make this sleeve, but yeah, it's always kind of funny to see him there. And then also, this is him again on a not British record, but this is I'd say this is sort of an infamous cover, but that's him again right there. And I believe that's Discharge's manager right there. So yeah, just a little bit of trivia, and Gary got around back then. Okay, so that's the first Veruca's album, and that is the first release on Tempest Records, and that was February of 1982. This came out. All right, so that is the Veruca's, and all of the catalog numbers have Hell as the prefix. So this is Hell 1. Okay, so Hell 2 is another just absolute legendary record. So this is Dead Wretched, No Hope for Anyone. So Dead Wretched was another Birmingham band. This was released in March of 1982, so again, early 1982. This is just this, in my opinion, this is like one of the best, more obscure UK 82 bands. You know, like, once you start getting past the surface level of your GBHs and Abrasive Wheels and Discharges, like, this is one of the first bands I think a lot of people find, and they're like, holy crap, there's a lot of bands out there that were in that caliber of songwriting and record, you know, just quality as a band, that they kind of just, I don't know, they got a little overshadowed, or they didn't have much output. But these guys are from Birmingham. And there's actually 2 variations of this. So there's this one that I have, and this is most of the ones I see that have like a card type cover. And apparently there is a version of this with more of a paper sleeve. I've never seen one of those personally, but they're on Discogs. Those are out there. This one, there's there's only those 2 variations, but they did reissue this. Mad Butcher reissued this in I think it was 2020 or 2021. They put this out again, and man, this, I can't say enough good things about this record. This is one of my all-time favorites. So that is Hell number 2, Dead Wretched, No Hope for Anyone. Okay, so Hell 3 is another kind of underrated and underappreciated band in my opinion. Drongos for Europe. So Drongos for Europe were also a Birmingham band. This is the first band that actually had put out a record before they were on Inferno Records. So before that, they put out the Adverse Chorus 7-inch. This is self-released, and this is actually pretty rare. This is actually, it's numbered. I think it's out of 500. Could be wrong. This was 1981, and the sleeve was all handmade paper, and it's actually too big to fit in the 7-inch sleeve, so you have to put it in sideways. But yep, this is another underrated release. I mean, this is a pretty strong release. I think Drongos definitely had more of a 77 sound to them compared to most of their contemporaries from the early 80s. Like, this is more Eater, the Drones, the Ruts type sounding than like GBH or Verkers or Discharge, etc. So that's their first release, Adverse Course from 1981, and then they moved to Inferno for this. This was March of 1982 also, same as Dead Wretched, and this was Hell 3. So this is an interesting one for a few reasons, besides just the a little departure in style from the last 2. I'd say Dead Wretched is more oi sounding, Verkers are more hardcore punk, and then this is kind of, I'd say it's maybe a little more classic, to the classic side than Dead Wretched, but it's still got good sing-along chants, choruses, and all that stuff. But also, this record is the only record that actually came with an insert, so or like a lyric insert, I should say. So this comes with a Xerox insert with some live pictures, and can't really tell because the quality is not that great, but it also comes with lyrics for all the songs on here. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I'd say it's a little tough to find with the insert. You don't usually see them with the insert. I don't know if I don't think all of them have it. Maybe only the copies that the band sold came with the insert, maybe. Not sure. But yeah, this is another one of those. The cover is great on this. It's very. I really don't know why this band isn't up there with like some of the other more cult classic UKD2 bands. They slip through the cracks a little bit, and actually it's funny because this band pretty much played and still play. I think they took a little break in the late 80s, but then throughout the 90s and 2000s they did way more material through the 90s and 2000s than they ever did in the 80s. So yeah, it's just kind of funny to me. I don't know. But yeah, so that is Hell number 3, Drongos for Europe, Death's a Career EP, and that was March of 1982. So for Hell number 4, we are back to the Verkers. And this is the Verkers' second release, I Don't Want to Be a Victim. So there was, like I said, there was a lineup change for this record. They had a different bass player and a different drummer, I believe. Or no, I think it's the same bass player, but Brian, aka Brains, he replaced Gary when he left to go in Discharge. So this was their second release, I Don't Want to Be a Victim. And they switched to a black Inferno label on this guy. Hell 4. This one is kind of an interesting record. It's kind of like an oddball, I think. In the it sounds more like a demo. I think the recording quality actually went down on this one compared to the last one. I think maybe they were just kind of, they hadn't really found their legs yet after they lost Gary, because Gary was such a strong drummer. And Brian's great too. I think it's just maybe they didn't quite gel yet, as they would definitely do on their later releases once they make to Riot City. So there's only one original press of this, and this could be had, it would come with a t-shirt insert, t-shirt order form. Mine doesn't have that, so I guess someone got the t-shirt. But there was only one original press. There was a repress, and it says it came without a cover. I don't know how you would be able to tell that those aren't just maybe an overrun. They didn't do enough covers or something, but it's listed on Discogs as a separate version. So, and then it was repressed by Havoc Records in 2016. Havoc Records actually did all of the Verrucker's 7 inches. They did represses of all of them. So these, you can still get these. Even though it was in 2016, I see them all the time still. They did a lot of them, and they're a great option for anyone that just wants a copy. Not that these are very expensive either, but I mean, most of these Inferno releases range from like $30 to $60, $75 for the most expensive ones, maybe with, you know, an insert and stuff. And then you can get those Havoc represses for like $10 or less usually. So, you know, they definitely serve a purpose. This is actually the last Verrucker's record that was on Inferno. And this was June of 1982. So the Verrucker's, after they left Inferno, they would migrate over to Riot City. And it's kind of an interesting story what happened. I talk about this in the Riot City video, but the Inferno Tempest was kind of notoriously unreliable. So the Verrucker's were like firing on all cylinders, and they wanted to just get music out. And Inferno was kind of a really shoddy operation in terms of like an actual record label. And they couldn't get the music out in time. And there's a demo, or not a demo, but a practice recording of Verrucker's that you can hear. It's probably on YouTube, where they actually announced their next EP, which would be this, which came out on Riot City. But they announced that this is the new single, but they don't know when it will be out because they're having a lot of problems with Inferno. So
Second one, the B-side, the new single, I don't know when it'll be out. We've had a lot of problem with Inferno. It's called All Systems Fail.
This and the Verrucker's album on Riot. So these are their next 2 releases after this one. So this was, these are both from '83. But these 2 records were intended to be released on Inferno. So this was supposed to be an Inferno album, which Inferno never did a full album. They only did 7 inches, but this was intended to be released as this on Inferno, but it didn't work out that way. And they sold the rights to these records to Riot City. So that's pretty interesting. I'm not going to go too in-depth on the Riot City or Verrucker stuff because that's all in the Riot City video. So I'll touch on them, I'll show them, but I'm not going to really go too deep into the history of these because I already did that. And there's actually a lot more to this band that I want to get to in this video. So as far as the Riot City stuff goes, there's all these right here. This is their full Riot City repertoire. Again, all different members on all these. Actually, I think these 2 have the same. These have different people on them. Yeah, I just was a revolving door of guys in this band. But and also definitely a style change. These 2, with the original guitar player still, Bruce, these are more melodic sounding, and then they definitely took a turn into the more discharged hardcore punk in 84, in like late 83, 84 by the time these came out. So between this one, this was June of 82. They didn't release anything for over a year. So this was, I think, August of 83, and this was like September of 83. So they really were having trouble getting their music out. And so I guess these would have been shelved for quite a while before they actually were able to get back on their feet and putting records out. again. But they didn't miss any time. So after these Riot City releases, they did one record, which this is probably the rarest Verrucker's record out there. This was a German-only release on Pogar. So this never came out anywhere else. It was supposed to be on, see, it was licensed by Fight Back, which was a division of Mortar Hate. So this was supposed to be put up by Mortar Hate. That was Conflict's record label. Actually has a picture of the first Verrucker's EP on the back. This is just a really shoddily made cover, but this song, No Hope of the Future, is really great. And Never Again is actually a song. This is a different version of that was on the first EP, the first Tempest release. That was a B-side song on that. So they re-recorded it for this. And it just comes on the blue Pogar labels. This is probably the most expensive, rarest Verrucker's release of the 80s. This is like around $100 to find this, and this came in a bunch of different color variations. This was, I think there's an orange version and a pink version also, and most Pogar singles are like that. They come on these paper sleeves of various colors. So, oh, and actually I should mention this. So this was put out by, this was put out recently by Negative Insight. They're a great zine, and occasionally they do records. So these recordings are from the same era as this. So this is with Damian Thompson, Tony May, and Andy Baker, who all would leave Verrucker's to become, you can see them right there. So that's Damian, Andy, and I can't tell, but I believe that's Tony in the back there. And actually, I think that's Tam from what would be Sacrilege. But anyway, so the three of them left Verrucker's and formed Sacrilege. Actually, Tony stayed for, I think, another record, but then he also left to join Sacrilege. But in here, there's actually an interesting history of this era of the band, which is kind of like, the waters are a little muddy here. The only thing about this was they mentioned in here that the songs that were on this record were actually from Tony May's first band, or I don't know if his first band, but his band before he was in Verrucker's, which isn't true because Never Again was a Verrucker song before this. It was on the first EP, but that very well may be true for No Hope of the Future. But yeah, this is a cool little release to have. This actually came with a zine too. I love everything that Negative Insight does, and they did some great write-ups on No Future, Riot City, a lot of these labels that I cover here, and yeah. And these are just rare compilation tracks. So these were on Motorhead. It says what they were off of. We Don't Need Nuclear Force. It was a compilation, and it came with a bonus 7-inch, so that's what these songs are from. They are the same era as this, so early 84, let's say. Yeah, it should be early mid 1984, these songs. But yeah, so these two kind of go together in my mind. Interesting era. So after this, Damian and Tony would leave, Andy would stay on, and they would do this, which is one of my favorite Verrucker's releases. This was on Rot Records, which was ran by Dunk, the original singer of Riot Squad. So he left Riot Squad after the first two 7-inches and started this record label. And they put out a lot of really great stuff. They put out English Dogs, Resistance 77. I definitely want to do a video on them too, but I'm still hunting down a couple more. That'll hopefully be the next video I do. But this record is just absolutely, this might be my favorite Verrucker's release ever, actually. So this was winding down towards the end of 1984. Andy would then leave after this, and the whole lineup again changed. And this would be their second album. And this one is one of those albums that you don't really, it's kind of like people just forget that this album exists. This was self-financed by the Verrucker's, so they weren't on a label. It was called Liberate Records. By this time, they had really gone the conflict direction. There's a lot of, you know, animal rights, apartheid South Africa lyrics that was really, really common at the time, you know. Very, you know, it's definitely the conflict hardcore punk side. This isn't anarcho, like this isn't like a Crass record, but topically they really shifted gears away from like the generic kind of anarchist ideologies that they had on their earlier records, and they focused on this one. And this, I mean, is an outstanding record too. I mean, this is like really, really good, and it's kind of sad that it gets that people forget about it. But yeah, this was it's kind of a tough one to find too. You don't really see this one often. Liberate Records. So this was their final release of the 80s, official release. We went over this in the other video. So there's the Bruker singles collection. So this has all the singles, including, it has the Tempest stuff, it has the Riot City stuff, and it has the Rot Massacre Millions 12-inch, but this is missing the Pogar 7-inch. So that's too bad. But it has everything else. Yeah, there's a lot of songs on here, but it's actually funny because the Another Religion, Another War, they actually, this is a picture of the 7-inch version that came out in the 90s, so I guess they couldn't find the original one to scan. That was on Sewage, that was like in the 90s sometime that came out, but it was actually a double 7-inch reissue, so it's just kind of funny for some extra autism, nerd autism level anecdotes for that one. So there's that. There's some pretty cool releases concerning the Verucker's demos. So these are two different versions. There's some songs are shared on these. This has a couple demo songs that aren't on this, and this has like a bunch of compilation tracks and just rare outtakes that aren't on this. So they both kind of have their own. This one's a little lazy. This is that Vile Records, and they're kind of the records sound good, but just the packaging is kind of like, you know, like this really pixelated, and this picture, and you can just tell, you know, the pictures aren't. It just looks rushed, but this is cool because it has the full demo, and then it has some other rare stuff. Good Time Girls was an outtake. Busted Again. This is actually from that practice tape I mentioned earlier, where they talk about how Inferno was taking too long. That's what this Busted Again song, and this is actually the only version, or the only record that has that song on it. The song was never recorded for anything and just kind of was forgotten about. I actually wish someone would do this entire practice tape on an LP, because it's not bad quality. It sounds pretty good. It sounds, I'd say it's demo quality. You know, it's probably better than the actual demos that are on this in terms of quality. This is pretty crude. The demos that are on this are actually from before they did the first EP, and Gary was playing bass and they had a different drummer. So yeah, just an odd lineup. This is similar to that one, but this has a bunch of these are all like compilation songs. Some of these songs were on that 7-inch that I showed earlier. So I think United We Stand, Stop the Killing, and Blood Money, and Seek and Destroy maybe? Let's see. Blood Money, Seek and Destroy, We Have the Right. So Seek and Destroy, Blood Money, We Have the Right. So the last 3 songs on this are on here. Those are the same recordings, but this is on Punkcore Records, which is a street punk label from the 2000s, 90s and 2000s. They did like, you know, the Casualties, Cheap Sex, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is pretty cool, and I really it actually has some explanations for where all the songs came from. And actually, this is a very, very early picture of the Veruckers on the back, and that's Gary Maloney, who would eventually be the drummer on the first Veruckers EP and join Discharge, so he's playing bass in this picture. And there's Rat and Bruce, and I forget the drummer at this point's name, but he never recorded anything other than the demos, and then they got a new bass player, and Gary moved to drums, and that was the really the beginning of this band. There's also some interesting, this is like Bloodsuckers era photos here. This is actually the same lineup that was in the UK DK documentary. And then there's some other, there's that same picture again. This has been reissued a number of times also. So this can be found, actually they use this, there's a repress of this. It's the same tracks, it just has this picture is on the cover, so, but it's the same, the vintage Verrucker's variant unreleased. So those are kind of cool demo and oddity records. There's also this, which came out in 1985, 86. So this was licensed by Rot Records. But this Rot was kind of sketchy, and I'll talk about that one day when I get into Rot. But they did a lot of weird releases that were not technically on Rot, I guess for tax write-off purposes or something. But he did a lot of records that were just like attack. Like you can tell that it's just by the way it's laid out that this is a Rot production, just because it's so obvious compared to the other Rot things. But this is actually was supposed to be issued for Brazil, I think. Rot had a distribution, some kind of distribution relationship with Brazil. So there's a lot of Brazilian stuff around this time that were related to Rot Records. Like there's a Brazilian version of some English Dogs records and other stuff like that. But this is actually really cool because this has a song, State Enemy, right here. This song was recorded on the Massacred Millions sessions. So Massacred Millions is 4 songs. There was also this one. The only place this song is besides this is on this compilation, Have a Rotten Christmas. And this is another Rot compilation that is, you could just see the similarities and the fonts and all that, and just the layout. So this is where State Enemy originally was, and this was 1984. This came out. So this came out around the same time as Massacred Millions. So I guess he saved one song from Massacred Millions session to put on here. Put the other 4 on that. That song is great, State Enemy. And there's also some live stuff on here. This is kind of a cool thing, and that was what Rot Records is really great for, is these weird compilations and other kind of just oddities. But they usually have like a couple gems. And we're actually going to talk more about Rot as this goes on. As far as the Verrucker's collections go, there's also this, which we talked about. This is the Verrucker's Another Religion, Another War, Riot City years. This has everything that they did on Riot City. I talked about that already. There's also this, Verrucker's Deadly Games. This was on Abstract Records in, I don't know, early 90s. This is kind of a weird, this is also kind of a compilation. This does have a cool thing though. This has Dance Until You're Dead, which was recorded at the same time as the Bloodsuckers album, but was not on the Bloodsuckers album. So I think this is actually on that rare vintage Verrucker. This is on this also, but before this came out, this was the only place you could find this. This is kind of a weird, it's a compilation of Another Religion, Another War, Bloodsuckers, and Led to the Slaughter. And it's missing a bunch of songs off of Bloodsuckers. It has the full Another Religion, Another War, and then it's missing one song off Led to the Slaughter. And the tracks they picked to put on here, I think, kind of sucks. Like, they put the Alice Cooper joke track on here, but they left off, like, What the Hell Do You Know, and some of the outstanding other songs that were on the album. So, yeah, this is kind of just, I think, like a cash-in. In the early 90s, maybe they were just, like, throwing some stuff at the wall from records or from music that they owned to see what would stick. This came out around the same time as that Vice Squad Riot City years, the singles collection that was also on Abstract. So I think they were trying to like get some punk stuff out there to see if any interest was starting to come back. And I think actually Verrucker's had reformed by this point. I'm not sure. I think they would have, because the Verrucker's broke up in the late 80s, 87 I think, and then in the early 90s they started again. So I think that would have been around the time that this came out. Anyway, it's cool to have. It's a good collection of songs. This is on clear vinyl actually, which I hate. but this came on red and black also. So yeah. As far as live stuff, there is some cool Verucas live things. I'm a big fan of live recordings, so this was released in '84 on Rot, just like a lot of the other stuff. This is live in the Netherlands. This was recorded in '84 with the same lineup that Another Religion, Another War had. So this is Damien and Andy and Tony, I believe, from Sacrilege are on this. And this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool to have. It's not that great quality, but it says, yeah, limited edition. It's not worth really that much, but I like this. And then there's also this one, which is live in Leeds '84. This is the same, I believe the exact same lineup as that other one. This is actually from '99. This was released, but this was a CD, I think, in the early '90s, and then it was finally put on vinyl in '99. So yeah, so the lineup that's on the cover is not the lineup that played this show. And then this came out recently, and this is also on that Vile Records. This is pretty cool. This has Live at the 100 Club, November '83. So this was the lineup. This was also, I believe, yep, see here's Damien and Andy. So this would have been the Led to the Slaughter lineup, I believe, on side A at the 100 Club, and then side B is a much later show from '86. Yeah, so I think that would have been actually after One Struggle, One Fight came out. And this is on I think it's on a weird color of some kind. Yeah, like a purple marble. Yeah, whatever. This record, this Vile Records, I don't know. The cover's stupid. Like it's a picture of a rat from I don't know, the past couple years. And then on the back they have all these great pictures from the '80s. Like, why don't you just, make a decent cover for I think the back cover is better than the front cover almost. It just looks so, it's like just Photoshop. I don't know. But this sounds really cool. I just bought it purely for the musical content. Okay, so that is the Verucas 80s pretty much discography. I think that's everything from the '80s that's available on vinyl right there. So with that said, we can finally move on to our next release, which we would be back to Dead Wretched. So this is the second and final Dead Wretched release. This was the Convicted Infiltrator EP. This came out in October of 1982, and this was Hell 5. So this would be their final release of the '80s. Again, it's like the other one. There's only 2 songs on this, but just 2 bangers. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much to say about this other than it's just absolutely outstanding. UK '82 with a tinge of that Oi sing-along style. So as far as this record, there is only this one original press, but there is a mispress variation of this that has Verucas labels on it. So it'll be in the Dead Wretched sleeve, the Dead Wretched music, but just the labels are wrong. And then Mad Butcher did this again in 2021. And as far as Dead Wretched goes, this is one of those bands that really was kind of just, I think, neglected for many, many years in terms of like reissues and retrospective stuff. But finally, a couple years ago, Mad Butcher did this, the Dead Wretched No Hope For You collection. And this has everything on it. So this has both of those 7 inches, the Inferno 7 inches. It has the demos from 1982. It has a couple songs from a practice session in 1982, which are very good quality. They sound awesome. And then it has 4 songs they re-recorded in 2010. And usually I'm kind of like, I don't really need to hear that, but this is actually great. It sounds, it sounds very faithful to their original releases. And it's got this great picture, and it comes with insert with all the lyrics, which I always wondered the full lyrics. I mean, you can, some of it's kind of lost in translation. But yeah, I finally was able to see all the lyrics and know exactly what he's saying in every song, and has a whole history of the band. It's actually pretty funny. They talk about how the singer's name was Billy Idiot, which is like a joke on Billy Idol because he was a huge Generation X fan. And they put like they're all coming up with names for with like punk alter egos for themselves, and he couldn't decide what name to choose, so he had everyone write down like what they think would be the best name for him, and they put it in a hat and he picked it, and the one he picked said Idiot. So that's what he went with, but they actually were fucking with him, and every single paper they put in there said Idiot. So that's really funny. I thought that was funny. Yeah, but just what a great band. There's actually a really cool video that was recorded around this time of them playing in like it's like an abandoned factory or something, but it's for the song No Exception, which is from your demo, your No Exception. So that's on YouTube, and yeah, I probably watched that 1,000 times as a kid. But yeah, this is pretty cool, and it was a joint between Mad Butcher and Bomball, who are two recurring labels that are dedicated to kind of making this era of music available for another generation. I think this came on other colors, but I don't know. I always go for the black one. So yeah, so that is Dead Wretched. And if you're not really familiar with any of the bands in this is probably like the one that comes most high. I guess Roofers come very highly recommended, but Dead Wretched, I put them way up there. They're probably one of my favorite punk bands of this period. But yeah, so Dead Wretched. Okay, so we are getting close to the end now. We are back to Drongos for Europe. So this would be the final Drongos for Europe release on Inferno and of the 80s. Like I said though, they came back later in the 90s, but this one would be their last 80s release. This was Hell 6, and this came out in October of 1982. And I think this is probably their finest. I mean, I like the other one also, but these songs that are on here are great. Eternity and Bridge of Summertime Violence, they're just, this is like as punk as you can get. There is zero, Motorhead, metal influence, anything like that. This is just pure 70s punk played by kids in the 80s. And yeah, I really, really, really love this band and this record, this release especially. But like the other Drongos release, there's only the original press, which is this one. This came out in, I couldn't find the exact month, but judging by, it would have to be October or November 1982. So yeah, that would be their final release. As far as Drongos, their 80s material, there is this, which is a collection of all of their singles and rarities. That's the Career. This is pretty cool. So this has all of the 7 inches that we talked about. Adverse Chorus, that's a Career, and Eternity. This is pretty cheap. You can find this one. This is from that Italian Pure Punk Records. This one you can find pretty cheap. It's actually pretty funny that this guy's dressed like he's in Nam here. He's got a helmet on and everything. That couldn't have been very comfortable to wear on stage. But yeah, there's some cool pictures of them from back in the day. This actually also has some obscure compilation releases and some unreleased demos from 83, 84 time period. So a little after their actual records came out. So this one was, the end of 82, and then they actually continued on for years after that. So it's kind of cool. This, you can hear their progression, and by the time they did like this song Dresden, which I think is like might be their greatest song that they ever did back in the early days, this sounds like it could have been like an External Menace song or something like that. Like they really had come into their own by that time. And that song, I think that's usually the first song I show anyone who's curious about Drongos for Europe. This would be a complete collection of everything that was ever released by Drongos, except for one song. And of course, I will show it to you. So this is another one of those weird rock compilations that was done on under another name. What was this one? This was Cult Records, but this is just another rock collection. And they did a bunch of these Christmas cash-ins, which were pretty much just songs that were taken off of demo tracks that the guy from Rot, I guess, had, and no one ever got paid for these. These were just like pump and dump compilations, but at the time, people were really pissed about these because they would just send Rot like a cassette, and then some of their songs would end up on a compilation. And people were like, what the heck? But in hindsight, that was a good thing because now we have records of a lot of this stuff that you might not ever hear again. But yeah, so this is where that Drongo song Dresden was. And this was 86, I think this came out. So this came out a little after the fact, but there's Dresden. Where is it? Yeah, right there, Dresden. But then on the A side, there's this other song, Can't Afford to Fall. And that's another great, outstanding song, but it's not on this retrospective collection for whatever reason. I don't know why they missed that song. Maybe they didn't want to put it on there. I don't know why. Actually, I always want to say this compilation is just incredible. I mean, front to back, it's got some Swedish and Finnish bands on here, and then it has Riot Squad, Hate the Law. That's like my favorite Riot Squad song ever. Oi Polloi, Silent Minority. That's one of my favorite Oi Polloi songs. I mean, this compilation and all of these rock compilations are just chock full of incredible, weird songs that you, in many cases, can't find anywhere else. So I'm always on the hunt for these rock comps, and this label is definitely going to be one of my next videos. I'm still hunting for a couple more rock releases though. But yeah, so that is Drongos for Europe. And yeah, I think one of the most underrated and under recognized UK82 bands of all time. And for whatever reason, these guys still play, but from what I understand, they don't really play any material from this time. Like, I've seen set lists and there's not one single one of these songs from them. So like I said, they wrote a lot more music, and I think they probably progressed a lot musically by the time they started releasing those records in the 90s. So maybe they just felt like, you know, these are too, I don't know, they just feel like they progressed past the point of playing this. But for me personally, this is what I love. I love this stuff, you know. Yeah, you know, it was made by kids, but I don't know, keeps you young, I guess. So yeah, that is Drongos for Europe, and that was Hell number 6. So this is actually the last release on Inferno, Criminal Class Fighting the System. This is not only the last Inferno record, but it's actually the first and only Criminal Class record of the 80s. So this was November of 1982, Hell 7. These guys were from Coventry, who, if you know anything about Coventry, that's another place where there's many bands. This is probably the biggest band to come out of Coventry. Everyone probably knows this. Funny story is that Criminal Class would actually share members of a band called Squad, who were also from Coventry, and they had connections with The Last Resort, I believe, English Rose, or no, I think English Rose was Rivals, but I think Red Alert also. I know Red Alert and Last Resort had connections to the band Squad, which is a great band also. Very expensive, late 70s punk band. But anyways, so back to Criminal Class. This record is probably the most expensive Inferno release, and it's not crazy. It's under $100 still. I think this is maybe on a really good day. This is like a $75 record. I don't remember how much I paid for it. I think I paid maybe $50 for this, but yeah. We're back to the classic Inferno label, which this Inferno logo, a lot of people confuse with the Blitz skull. But this actually predates the Blitz. I wonder if Blitz was influenced by this, because this was already on a lot of records by the time. the Blitz logo came out. But yeah, so Criminal Class, they were an Oi band from Coventry. They were all skinheads. But they actually had a pretty big break very early on. They were included on this absolutely seminal Oi compilation, Strength Through Oi, which had a lot of notoriety behind it. But yeah, there's the drummer of Criminal Class right there. They had 2 songs on this. They had Blood on the Streets and Running Away. And the song Blood on the Streets on this, I think, was probably at the time that this came out was one of the more popular tracks to come off of this. And in fact, it was so popular, this is pretty funny, and you would never ever think that this connection would be made, but this band, DYS, so this is their first album. These guys are from Boston, Massachusetts. This was 1982, 83 this came out. This is obviously a bootleg, but this bootleg, the entire A-side is the original album. So that gives you an idea how quick all these songs are in here. But so the entire original album is on side A, and side B is a live recording from CBGB in 83, and they cover Blood on the Streets by Criminal Class, which was on Strength Through Oi. So that just blows my mind that Criminal Class had such an impact on these guys from Boston across the country that they covered Criminal Class and put it in their live set. That's just, it blew my mind the first time I saw it, so I wanted to include that here. But yeah, so Criminal Class was included on this compilation, and pretty much every band that appeared on this compilation was in real trouble after this came out, because this came out around the same time as the infamous Southall riot in London. Which I'm not going to really get into. I think I'm going to do a different video that's just about skinhead records from this time. But basically the gist of it was Oi show in London turned into a race riot. You know, there's varying accounts on what did and did not happen, but the end result basically was that Oi music, street punk, was kind of blacklisted. Like, this came out on Decca, which was a major label. And once this was released, which this gentleman on the cover, Nicky Crane, was obviously a notorious member of the National Front, and you can't really see, but they kind of airbrushed out his National Front tattoos and stuff. So once this came out, people kind of did a little digging, figured out who he was, coupled with the Southall riot. Yeah, a lot of the bands that appeared here, really, it did them no favors whatsoever. And Criminal Class was one of those bands. So Criminal Class kind of, after that came out, that was 1981, they kind of broke up and didn't really hear anything from them for a while until the end of 82. So this was November of 82. They kind of tried to come back and try to start, kind of have a fresh start, but it didn't really pan out, and they kind of just languished in relative obscurity for many years. This is a very interesting band too, because their sound isn't as typical of many Oi bands. Like, if you listen to the Criminal Class stuff, like, their time signatures are just very odd, and it's almost like jazzy or something. I don't know, it's really weird. You just have to listen to it. But for anyone that's interested in that, there is this retrospective collection, the Criminal Class Touch of Class. This has a 7-inch. It has all the songs that were on. There's the 2 songs that were on Strength Through Oi. It has their 1980 demo, 1981 demo, the single that we just talked about, and then it has a couple bonus tracks that were from the 1984 demo. And there is a 7-inch that includes the full 1984 demo. I think there's 3 songs, and there's only 1 song. I think Looking Back in Anger is on it. Don't Look at Me, I don't know what that song is from. It sounds like it's more modern recording, so I'm not sure, but this is not on the 84 demo, and I can't really find anything on that song. There's a version of this that comes with a fanzine with all kinds of info and stuff, so it might be the info might be in that, but my copy doesn't have that. That wasn't with every copy, that zine. This just comes with the poster. So yeah, this is a very interesting band. If you listen to this, they don't sound, they're not a cookie cutter oi band. I would say they're a little technically challenged at their instruments maybe at certain points, but it's just really interesting to see how, you know, bands kind of just did their own thing, especially at this time when it wasn't really like, there was no like blueprint for being in an oi band. They just kind of made songs, and however they came out, so however they came out. So yeah, that's pretty, definitely a very I would say obscure oi band that kind of started off in the forefront back when they started, and then they kind of got more obscure as the years went on. But this is a pretty cool one to have. And the drummer has UK subs tattooed on his fucking head. That's pretty cool. That's dedication right there. I love Charlie and the boys, but I'm not getting a tattoo of them on my head. So with that is the final release on Inferno. I know it was kind of long and drawn out to go into what was actually 7 releases, but I figured it would be kind of a good way to kind of tie off some loose ends, especially with the Varukar stuff. I really wanted to get all that out. But yeah, a very underrated label. There's no collections of them. Like, I wish someone would do like a Inferno. You could probably fit everything that came out on Inferno on one 12-inch. That would be really cool if someone did that. Full Inferno Records collection. But yeah, so that's the full label of Inferno. And of course, like in all these videos, I'll just throw these out there. These are the 2 books. I use some other books too, but these are the 2 main resources that I use for these and all of the videos. So this includes, you know, here's Criminal Class right here. Has like a detailed history of this band. And yeah, it kind of talks about how in the beginning, you know, they were on John Peel and they really had such a strong start. And then the whole Strength Through Oi debacle really like kind of just sabotaged them, along with many other bands. So, all right, well, I guess with that being said, we'll just wrap it up there, and hopefully soon I can finish up the next video, which I think is going to be on Rot Records. There's still a couple records I got to get to finish that up, but all right, so thanks for watching, and see you next time.